Can you all see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So, in today's lecture, I'm going to talk about battery management system. And at the finally, I'll going to discuss about how can we write a program regarding to battery management system for an electrical vehicle. So I'll slowly start my discussion with what does BMS mean? So what does BMS do? So the primary function of battery management systems are first to prevent the human who is operating battery management device, battery power device, and that is our primary and ultimate concern. Nowadays, you'd be seeing many news like the battery is getting exploited whenever a person is keeping charging for his mobile. So the primary concern is to make human being protective or safe whenever it is under charging. So that's the first concern for the battery management system. So, and under any circumstances, human beings should never be in danger from the battery pack. That's the main important. The battery management system must also be able to detect unsafe operating conditions and to respond to them in a way that warns the user and if possible eliminates hazardous conditions. Nowadays in your laptop, if you are overcharging it, there is a notification coming up saying that you are charging it for more time or your battery deadline has been over, you have to replace your battery kind of thing. So that's the other notification which is going to be done. So the secondary concern of the battery management system is to protect the battery pack itself. So here we talk about battery cell, and when you combine many cells in series or parallel, it becomes a module, and many such modules are connected, it becomes a battery pack actually. So in all our electrical vehicles, we use battery pack. So here we must ensure that the battery is maintained in healthy operational window, not under all operating conditions, and we must also have fallback safety mechanism in place in case of abuse of battery system by the host application or other abnormal operating conditions leading to the failure. So whenever any failure happens, we should be able to know about it. Our algorithms must continuously monitor the state of health of the battery pack to be able to give guidance to the host application regarding to the availability of the energy and power such that the battery pack is never overstressed. We decide to extend the life of the battery pack as much as possible because battery is a very expensive one, but we also at the same time decide to obtain high level of performance as possible from the battery pack. All of us do it. It is whenever I talk about battery, you can remember about your mobiles, like whenever your all of us are worried whenever your charging comes down. So we want to use battery for long duration, we want to use it for high performance. At the same time, we want to make it safely and secure. So for that, we maintain the state of the battery within some prescribed performance window. So we don't go it for overcharge, we don't go it for very less charge. We may not be permitted to allow the state of charge to ever exceed some level. At the same line, we may not be permitted to go below certain level. So in computing power limits like upper limit and lower limit, to inform the host application of the availability of power and energy in the battery pack, we must keep a kind of operational window in the mind. So what is such kind of window in the mind we keep it? As mentioned, so battery management system is to provide information to the host controller, the person who is using it. So whenever we buy a battery, there will be some specifications given the battery telling about it energy limits and power limits estimate. So we should be able to operate it under certain conditions. So that's what battery management system means. Now, why do I need battery management systems? So previously there were n number of battery management systems. So a very simple battery powered application often do not require a sophisticated battery management system. All lithium ion battery packs need at least a minimal battery management system, even in simple applications like a flashlight, because lithium ion batteries, whenever we don't manage them properly, there's a chance like they can catch fire and explode. This is the case not about lead acid or the remaining acid batteries, nickel ion batteries or something, but nowadays wherever you go in all your electrical vehicles, they use lithium ion battery. If you don't manage them properly, there's a chance like they are they can explode. So that's why battery management system plays a very important role in lithium ion battery. So, but for even in lithium ion batteries, we don't necessarily require a complicated battery management system. Again, when we come to battery management systems, we don't require a very costly or expensive one. We try to make it as simple as possible because the battery should be as cheap as possible, actually. So, we try to maintain it as simple as possible. So, what happens? Inexpensive purpose built in electronics with the IC manufacturers, integrated circuit manufacturers, are used to design for these purposes. So we might want to use very simple battery management system for low complexity, low cost application. Implementing a sophisticated battery management system requires a significant amount of processing, which means we need fairly capable microcontroller to implement all the algorithms. So we don't use general purpose systems or microcontrollers or microcomputers. We require a specific microcontrollers for battery management system. At the same time, it is important to understand the simple algorithms and inexpensive solutions will not usually be very good solutions. And there is a very important range of applications for which we should like to implement more sophisticated battery management algorithms for better results. So investment wise also we should see and we should operate them in very lesser way. So that's what we know battery management system is. So all of you, you'd be getting an idea. Whenever I talk about battery, all of you will be thinking about laptop and mobile. But being an electrical engineer, it is very important. Like now, IC engines, because of the pollution, because of the high cost of fossil fuels, so people are looking for electrical vehicles. So now I'll give you a quick review about how this electrical vehicles revolution has happened. So you can see here there are different electrical vehicles present. So the first and foremost thing which we are going to see is hybrid electrical vehicles. This hybrid electrical vehicles has gasoline engine where it can be petrol based or fuel based, and an electrical motor is there. That's why it's called as a hybrid. It works on both fossil fuel as well as electrical motor. The gasoline engine provides the average power demand required by the vehicle, and the electrical motor and the associated battery system handles the difference between the average and some peak power demand. So, the part of working of the electrical motor is very less when it comes to HEV, hybrid electrical vehicles. And so, when a vehicle is coasting or braking, it can accept some power from the drivetrain, and so on demand recharging the battery as well. So, whenever it breaks, all of you might be knowing about regenerative braking. During regenerative braking, what happens? The battery will get charged. So in the picture, you can see here the topmost picture on your right hand side. It is the Toyota Prius, first hybrid vehicle which was developed by Toyota company. So it has started not with lithium ion battery, it started with a nickel metal hybrid battery. And so now people started looking at lithium ion battery. So after this one electrical hybrid vehicles, people came to the second one called plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. These vehicles, what happens? So here, all of you in hybrid electrical vehicles, gasoline engines, IC engines are dominating, whereas the electrical role is very less. Plug-in hybrid electrical vehicles. So what happens? So the vehicles have larger packs. So battery packs. So battery cell is a single device. Battery module is a combination of battery unit cells. And when these modules are combined, it becomes pack actually. So the battery, it has high amount of larger battery packs when compared to the standard HVE. And consequently, they do have some all electrical range. So they work with all electrical range. So you can turn the gasoline engine off. So they have both gasoline engine and electrical thing. So whenever you don't require gasoline, you can turn it off and make it to work only on electrical basis, or else you can turn off the electrical things and make it work on only gasoline base. So depending upon the demand, that's what these things were going to be done. So here, you can see here in the picture on your right hand side, the bottom picture, it is Ford C Max Energy. So it has approximately 20 miles with a range of 32 kilometers, all electrical mode. So without any gasoline engine. So that's the advantage of this. So the evolution continued and people started going about extended range hybrid electrical vehicles. So this extended range hybrid electrical vehicles is very similar to plug-in hybrid vehicles, which we discussed before, except that the battery packs have become more and the storage of energy has become for long duration and the delivery of power has become more and it is able to deliver power for the full load also. So the picture you are going to see here on your right hand side top figure, it is a Chevrolet Volt and its electrical range is 53 miles or approximately 80 kilometers, so that's what it is going to do. So after that, people started looking for the pure electric vehicles and that is the ultimate conclusion where we remove gasoline engine completely and leave the vehicle so that is powered by the battery and electric motor only. So that's the picture which you can see on your right hand side bottom one. So it is a Tesla model S actually. So people call electrical vehicles or sometimes called battery electrical vehicles BEV. These vehicles have largest electrical packs when compared to the previous EREV or PHEV. So they have the largest battery capacity, and it has a mile range of the Tesla Model S has the mile range of 300 miles, and these batteries. What happens? So all of so the batteries which we use for our laptop is approximately in the order of 15 volts. For the cell phone, it is in the order of 4 volts. But we come to the vehicle battery, it will be usually between 250 volts and 600 volts. And your vehicle applications require high amounts of currents, which are almost 1000 amperes. And it is very difficult for portable electronics applications, which carry very less currents. Portable electronics, all your mobiles to respond to it. So they have high voltages and they have high currents. So that is what which we are going to discuss today. And here also what we are going to discuss today in topic is we are going to know about different simulations. First, we are going to discuss about the theory part. Later, we are going to discuss about some equations regarding to the electrical vehicles and equations regarding to your battery. And those equations are being written in coding and the outputs of the coding are being projected in today's work. So after that, what is the need for co-simulation of battery and load we are going to do? So here we are, because the topic is about algorithm of battery packs. So co-simulating the battery pack along with the load at the same time. It is important to be able to do so because we go far down to for the designing of building our batteries. So we want to have interaction between the battery and the load. So that's what we want to do. By performing this co-simulation, we can ensure that the battery pack will meet all of its performance requirements. So before we make large investment in tooling up a battery pack, because it's a very costly device, battery manufacturing facility generally looks for this co-simulation work. Generally, we would consider co-simulations only in case of investment is being done by the battery and where design improvements might be based. So we have to make, it has to meet the demand. So we might consider co-simulating electrical vehicles or grid connected systems also. So this is what it is being done. So, and even in mobile phones, they do this co-simulation. And wherever power demand is more, people start doing this co-simulation. We restrict ourselves to learning how co-simulate a battery pack along with the type of application which we are going to do. In order to predict the demand on the battery by the vehicle, we must simulate the vehicle over a number of real world application scenarios for which we provide profiles of the required battery power versus time. So here, as we go further, we'll come to know what are the real world simulations which we are going to do. We might consider co-simulating the battery with hybrid electrical vehicle. However, hybrid electrical vehicle simulations are very complicated. In order to simulate the vehicle accurately, you must be able to simulate all the complexity of internal combustion engine. So here you can see whenever we go for hybrid electrical vehicles, there is a complexity in simulating internal combustion engine because it is a very complex device. So, and combined with multi-speed transmission, so this is going to be difficult. And because hybrid electrical vehicles, it has electrical part also. So that's why hybrid electrical vehicles are extremely more complex. Now coming to the electrical vehicles, the simulation is bit simple. It's straightforward because there is no IC engine and it contributes. It is like fixed speed gearing is there, and no power source blending. There are no two sources, no fossil fuels, no electrical vehicles. You have only one electrical source. So there is no power source blending algorithm that needs to be simulated actually. So they determine how much power comes from internal combustion engine and how much power comes from electrical thing. So that's what we are going to do here. So that's why the simulation is very important for us. Now coming to the simulation itself, what are the things we do simulation here? So here in order to able to simulate electrical vehicles, so we need two things first. The first one is we need an accurate model or description of the vehicle itself. So without description of the vehicle, we can't go ahead. Like if you don't know what kind of vehicle we are going to connect the battery, we can't do it. The second one is we need to understand the task of the vehicle which is required to do. What kind of task it is going to do? Is it working in the agriculture fields, or is it working in the construction, or it is going on the roads? So what kind of things and what kind of roads it is going to do? So that's what it is going to do. And apart from that, the second thing which you are going to do is the vehicle description. When you describe the vehicle, you have to include parameters that characterize the battery inside the vehicle. So what are the battery requirements? So which include characteristics of the cells that can be used, and how these cells are configured in modules, and how modules are configured into battery pack. So battery pack consists of modules. When you split the modules, it becomes cells, and how the modules are being covered into pack, and also what happens. So we have to know about what kind of motor are you using in that vehicle, and what kind of power electronic tools are you using in the vehicle to drive the motor. So it is actually an inverter. What kind of inverters are you going to use? And we also must understand what is the drive train of the vehicles, and we have to understand the performance characteristics of the vehicles. So these are the things which are considered. So the task of the vehicle is required to accomplish is generally specified using profile of the desired speed versus time, and this profile can also be include road grade profile as well. So road grade profile also we can include. So what happens? So whenever what kind of road we are going to use, which we are going to discuss. So these are the four things which we are going to do. So the first one is urban dynamometer driving schedule. Basing on the four categories, we are going to divide them into. The first one is urban dynamometer driving schedule, where the vehicles are going to work in urban areas. And the second one, which according to the speed versus time profile, highway fuel efficiency test. So this kind of vehicles are going to work on highways. They don't work. It's not like they just keep on going for a long time. If it is urban, they have to stop and start kind of thing. And the third one is that you can see here NYCC. So remember all these terms. So they might be used in your simulation also. So New York City cycles, where it is basically used in metropoles. This is third profile. So this is a representative where you have to stop and grow according to the traffic, and it can be taxi cabs, it can be city buses, which works in large metropolitan areas. And the fourth one you can see here, it is given by the fourth one. It is US 06 or US 06 drive cycle profile, which is it is called actually. And this was given by United States of National Renewable Energy Laboratory. So this vehicle is generally based, it has its own sensors, and it is used to drive on the highway in the city of Colorado actually. And this drive cycle is used to represent a quite of mountain driving kind of scenarios for very high speeds. So these are the different kinds of vehicles task has been provided. So what are the things which I discussed previously? UDSS, HWFET, NYCC, and you can see US 06 profiles. All of you can see this one. This one we are going to simulate it actually. You can see here, this is the speed curve where it goes to higher, it stops, start and stop. You can see going up and going down. You can see going up and going down, going up and going down. There are many cuts here because it is UDSS. UDSS stands for the Urban Dynamometer Type Driving Schedule. So it is working in urban areas. This kind of electrical vehicle is working in urban areas. So that's what you can see from this is your time. So it is going to 20, 40, it is reaching approximately 50 and it is again coming down. It stops, it halts for some time, again it goes to 100, it stops. So it is an urban operated electrical vehicles. You can see this figure NYCC, which operates in New York. So you know the derivation for this one is, the definition is New York City service. So this one you can see it has frequent halt. So it goes to high value, stops, and you can see this one. But if you look at these two graphs, they are, it goes to high speed and it never comes down. It never becomes zero. The speed is there because it is highway operated one. And this one is also highway operated one, but you can see here it is being operated in mountains actually, US 06. So these are the four schedules or four tasks which we work on. Urban dynamometer driving schedule, which is called as UDDS. The other one is high fuel efficiency test, and the other one is New York City cycle. The other one is US 06. National Renewable Energy Laboratory has developed this US 06 one. So these are the different cycle profiles which we are going to discuss in our simulation also. So now let us discuss about what kind of approach we are using to start simulation. So what have we discussed till now? So what are the things? So what is, so I introduced myself. So I said about what is a battery management systems. So why battery management systems is important for, especially for lithium ion battery. So just recap, and after that, what are the various applications we use in battery? Mobile laptop is fine, but being electrical engineers, the largest way we use it in electrical vehicles, they are also operated in grid connected systems. Whenever we can use inverter and connect to the battery. And after that, we discussed about what are the different, we discussed about what are the different ways we can do it. What are the different simulation vehicles? So what are the requirements for the simulation vehicles? So with that, we know we slowly enter into simulation. So this is a basic diagram all of you can see, which talks about how do you control your electrical motor. So all of you can see desired speed, which actual speed, desired acceleration, desired force, actual force, desired torque, limited torque. And these desired limited torque, it gives for the force, it gives for the motor power. The motor power comes from the battery power. And after that, this battery power also indicates state of charge. All of you, the best example for your what is state of charge, very simple way of understanding is your mobile itself. So what does your mobile do? Your mobile, so your mobile, whenever it is getting discharged, suppose it is less than 15 percentage, there is a red line coming up for your mobile. So that's what it is going to operate, a red line coming up from your mobile, which means that it is indicating the state of charge. It is telling you how much charge is present in it. So if suppose if it is 100% charge, you kept it for charging, it indicates like it's fully charged. That is its state of charge. And suppose it indicates like say 80% charge is being done. That is your SOC. So it has a charge of, it can go to 100% charge and 0% charge, the upper and lower things. So here, whenever we discuss about anything, so we basically, we discuss about, so this block diagram, we are going to the design or the approach for the simulating an electrical vehicle is this one. So all of you can see here. So the four profiles. So what are so for the four profiles, all of you can see these are the four profiles: UDDS, HWFET, NYCC. The four profiles which I have mentioned in this slide, we these are the different pictures which we are going to get actually. So here, this is the general approach that we will learn for simulating a battery pack along with electrical vehicle, which is illustrated in this figure. So we start with top left block, which is your desired speed for the point of time at any drive cycle which you saw. And this one, this desired speed is always compared with actual speed. All of you might be knowing when desired speed is compared with actual speed, so we get an error. So whenever we get an error, this desired speed error drives the desired acceleration. So we compute what is the desired acceleration which it has to come. So after desired acceleration, we compute what is the desired force. After desired force, we compute the desired torque. So once we know the acceleration, we compute the desired force between the wheel and the road surface to achieve this acceleration. So that's what we are going to do. And that also will allow us to compute desired torque produced by the electrical motor. So how much torque the motor has to produce can also be designed. So the next step is to impose practical limits. So we design this one for actually ideal case. Later we impose what are the limitations for it, and after that we bring all of them for our design. And with the limited value of the torque, we compute the actual road force, and we find out from the force we achieve acceleration, and from the acceleration we achieve the speed of the vehicle. And we also consider motor power limits, and these are separate from distinct and motor torque limits, which we'll discuss in the next slides. And we must limit the motor torque and motor power to achieve something that is feasible by the motor used in our design. Using the value of motor power, we can compute the demanded battery power, and then we can update the battery state of charge in the motor as well. So after knowing about battery power, we can update the battery state of charge as I have explained to you, whether it is 0, 80 or 100%. At the end of the simulation, one drive cycle, we know how much energy has been depleted from the battery pack. And to accomplish the drive cycle, and from that information, we can extrapolate the overall vehicle range of the full cycle battery. So we generally do the simulation for one cycle, and after that basing on that we extrapolate for the total battery cycle. So that's what we are going to do. And look at this one. As I said, you the simulation is based on completely this block diagram. So the first the block diagram, which is on the top left hand side, plays a very important role actually. So what happens, the goal of this operation is to retrieve the desired speed from the drive cycle of the speed versus time. Speed versus time is a major thing which we are going to require. Basing on that, we have four profiles. So when we move to the second box, so it is all about acceleration. So acceleration is speed divided by time. All of you know that the acceleration units are meter per second square. So the desired acceleration is equal to desired new speed minus, you can see the equations here, desired new speed minus actual speed at the point in the time, and all divided by the time actually to accomplish the change in the speed. Here we are assuming that the drive profiles are sampled for one cycle. So it is 1 H. That's why I wrote it as 1 H actually. The denominator is one cycle. In the third box, all of you can see how do you calculate power. So we calculate the power from the Newton's laws. Force is equal to mass times of acceleration. So from the desired acceleration, force is equal to what all force we get. So the mass, which is in kg, and we multiply with desired acceleration. So we'll notice that in this slide, I'm including for all these quantities, at least first time of particular quantity is introduced. I find it to be very helpful when developing new models to include units for all the variables, so that they can ensure that the units are compatible with each other in every operation. If the units turn out not to be compatible in some calculation, then the logic of the calculation is flawed and must be re-examined. So that's why, whenever you do any calculations, make sure like the units are going in the right way. Now coming to the mass actually, so force is equal to mass times of acceleration. I'm going to do it. So what is the mass? All of you, let me tell you. The mass is the mass in kgs. So in the previous slide we talked about force, and this slide we talk about equivalent mass is not mass of the vehicle that you would measure if you are to drive it on some kind of scale. Instead, the mass includes representative of inertia of the rotating components in the vehicle drivetrain converted into mass form. So what we do, so mass is maximum mass of the vehicle plus rotating equivalent mass. So rotating equivalent mass is equal to, we take inertia. So we take motor equivalent mass is computed as motor inertia plus gearbox inertia, all scaled by gearbox ratio square. You can see n square. Don't get confused with n square. N is not a speed. So n is nothing but gear ratio. So it is gear ratio square. plus number of wheels. How many number of wheels? That kind of that much of inertia would be there. Number of wheels multiplying with individual wheel inertia. So it has been multiplied with individual inertia, and all of this is divided by square of the wheel radius. So gear ratio is n. So it is an unitless quantity. So the gear ratio is defined by the motor speed divided by the wheel speed, and it is unitless quantity, as I said. And in electrical vehicle, it is generally constant. We don't use multi-speed transmissions. The gearbox inertia is measured at the rotor side of the gearbox and not at the outside of the gearbox. The wheel radius is not the number that is printed on the tire. All of you will be misunderstanding that. It is the distance between center of the wheel hub to the road surface. That's why the picture has been kept here. If you might say that those are same things, so whether it is a road or the other one, it will be same. Many people will argue about it, but actually they are not same. The radius that we are interested is generally going to be somewhat smaller than the one printed on the side. So printed on the side and road to the flat surface, there is a small difference. So we have to measure from the center of the wheel to the flat surface actually. So wheel is so if you take into account, the wheel is somewhat flattened at the bottom where it meets the road surface. All of you can see it in the figure. Because of the load placed on it, it is going to be flat whenever it reaches the road. So if you look at the image on this slide, that's why I kept this image here. You will notice that the tire is indeed flattened a little bit when it encounters the road surface because of the load which is placed on the tire. So that's why the R value is taken from the center to this one, not printed onto your wheel. So that's how equivalent mass is being calculated. After equivalent mass, so we talk about forces. So there are four kind of forces which are present on the wheel. In this slide, we are going to discuss about two kinds of forces, and in the next slide, we are going to discuss about two kinds of forces. So what happens? There are four kinds of forces which are present there. The first of all these things is aerodynamic force. Because it is moving in air, there is a drag. The drag is caused by the vehicle because it is moving in the air, and the equation for computing aerodynamic force is equal to, you can see the equation here, aerodynamic force is equal to half of air density and multiplying with front area. Area is in meter square and air density is kg per meter cube, and along with that you are multiplying with drag coefficient CD, and you are multiplying with speed whole square. What is the pre speed whole square? So that is what you are going to do. And the other force which you are going to discuss here is rolling force. This all comes for the electrical vehicles. So there are four kinds of forces which you are going to discuss. And the other force is the rolling force. Rolling force is given by the coefficient CR, which is called as rolling frictional coefficient CR. So U by I means it doesn't have any units. That's what it actually means. It is being multiplied by maximum vehicle mass and also acceleration due to gravity, 9.81 meter per second square. And this rolling force, whenever you talk about rolling force, if it is considered to be zero, whenever the actual speed is zero, actual speed or freer speed actually, whenever it is in rest, so its value is taken as zero. So whenever it is moving, then there is a freer speed. Whenever it starts from rest, there is no pre-rest speed, or whenever it is motionless, if you can say like that, so the actual speed is taken as zero and the rolling force becomes a zero value. Now the next two forces which I am going to talk about is brake drag and grade force. These are the two remaining forces that impact the vehicle actually. The first is brake drag. This models any constant force that opposes acceleration. It might be something like mechanical forces of friction passing, dragging on brake rotors of the vehicles. So that's why it's called as brake drag. So clearly not a desired thing, but it may be present. So that's why it is taken as a constant value. And the final force is called as a graded force. If your vehicle is attempt to climb a hill and there is a force backward to the acceleration, so we are talking about grade force now. This grade force can either be negative or positive in practical, depending upon the vehicle is climbing or descending. Either it is uphill or downhill actually. It is computed as maximum. You can see the equation here, all of you. maximum vehicle mass multiplying with acceleration due to gravity, and sine of this grade angle. All of you can see the picture. You can see whenever it is moving uphill, there is a grade angle. There is an angle with respect to the ground level. So that's what it is called as a grade force. And it is equal to the weight of the vehicle when the weight is considered as force multiplying with sine of the grade angle or sine function of computing the fraction of the vehicle force that is pointed in the opposite way of the desired acceleration direction. So here we take the positive for the inclination and this angle, and negative for the declination. Whenever it is uphill, it is taken as positive, downhill, it is taken as a negative. So that's what we are going to do. Slowly after the forces, I come to the torque. If you can look at my presentation, so you can see here, first I talk about acceleration, next I talk about the mass, and acceleration and mass, they combine force, and force when it combines with the speed, it forces, and force whenever it combines with the speed, it becomes the torque actually. So that's how I have made my presentation. So now let me talk about this one. So we have computed net force, individual forces, opposite acceleration, and we are able to, now we can compute the desired torque. We add up all the forces. So what you can see here in the equation, desired acceleration force, aerodynamic force, rolling force, brake drag, or it is also called as a drag force, and it is, and the other one is, brake drag. All these forces are being multiplied, all are being added. So and we get the total force actually. So this overall force is then multiplied with wheel radius. So you can see wheel radius in meters I have multiplied to convert it into torque. This torque at the wheel side must be divided by the gearbox ratio. So I multiply with wheel radius, and later I divided by the ratio, gearbox ratio, to convert it into desired torque at the motor side of the gearbox. So that's how you are going to find the desired torque of the gearbox. So with that, I have again redrawn the flow chart or the block diagram of the core simulator to show the progress that we have already made. So we have started with desired speed, desired acceleration, desired force, and finally we came to the desired torque of this topic. So this is all about the ideal conditions. Now we are going to go with the limits. What are the limits which are there in electrical vehicles? We are going to talk about the limits in the electrical vehicles. So if you can look at this one here, in this slide, we will learn about how the limitations happen to achieve torque based on, motor limitations or powertrain limitations. So in order to give an idea with an electrical motor and powertrain, so here, I have clicked a picture on the right hand side of this slide, which is a powertrain of Volkswagen, and it is called as e-Golf. The motor, all of you can see the dark colored one is your motor, which is the blackest part, and it has many assemblies with fixed gear system to power train of the vehicles. You can see it is being assigned to many other electrical things. Gear system is being provided, and this one powers the train, the power train actually. There are different kinds of electrical motors used in electrical vehicles. So what is the simplest one people have started using in the cars is induction motor. So it is a three-phase AC induction motor. So which we are going to describe here. So and it is a simple, but it is a quite accurate model for the motor performance. So that's why it is being discussed here. Okay. So we are going with this one. So this is the one which we are going to discuss. So this what kind of limiting accelerating torque. So most of the electrical vehicles now started using a three-phase torque here. So you can look at the characteristics. We study about the AC motor induction characteristics. If you look at these characteristics, this is x-axis where speed is being plotted and y-axis torque is being plotted. From 0 to rated RPM, you can see that there is a constant torque. Above rated RPM, I keep on increasing my speed. This is a hyperbola kind of equation, and you reach the maximum speed. We ensure that we don't operate the motor above this one, above this maximum speed. You can see the torque keeps on decreasing when you operate above rated RPM. So this is what it is being discussed here. So let me revise this topic again. So this is partially that. Since power is equal to torque multiplied by the time, so we find it out very easy and difficult. Otherwise, we are in constant power region. So this is called as constant torque region. 0 to rated RPM, it is called as constant torque region. Above rated RPM, it is called as constant power. So during the constant torque RPM, so during constant torque region, your motor is going to operate from 0 to rated RPM. From rated RPM to maximum RPM or the maximum speed, we operate in constant power region. Constant power region is going to be in the form of a hyperbola kind of equation. If we are in constant power region, we must compute what is the available torque and what is the maximum rated torque multiplied with rated speed actually. So when we multiply both of them, we are going to get the speed. So this is what we are going to do, so that clearly we can assume the limited value. So that's what we can do. We have full acceleration from zero speed. It is quite different from standard gasoline powered vehicle. We are not dealing with IC combustion engine. So we which gives revolutions or RPM, which accelerate fully. The full torque is obtained from the motor all the way from the speed to the rated RPM of the speed. But above the rated RPM, the motor leaves its constant torque region and enters into constant power region. Since power is equal to torque multiplied by speed, everyone would be aware of this equation. The constant power region exhibits a hyperbolic shape of torque versus speed as shown in this diagram. This constant power is available up to ultimate speed known as maximum RPM of the motor. The motor should never be operated above this maximum RPM. So let's consider how it impacts the torque that is available from the motor at any point of time. Suppose the positive torque is demanded to accelerate the vehicle. If the motor speed at any time is less than or equal to rated speed, then the available torque from the picture will be equal to the maximum torque. Otherwise, we are in constant power region. We should compute the torque as maximum rated speed multiplied with speed of the motor and divide all divided by pre-rev things. So that's what we are going to do, pre-rev actual motor speed. And coming to the next one, we also have a limiting one which is called as decelerating torque. So what is this decelerating torque? So we have previously we discussed about acceleration, which is positive torque. The negative torque is called as deceleration. So the negative torque is demanded in order to decelerate a vehicle. This torque is divided by friction brakes and the motor itself. We will assume that the friction brakes of the vehicles are infinitely powerful, and so the deceleration that is demanded can be achieved by the frictional brakes, and if the motor isn't used even at all. But but of course, we will attempt to use motor as much as possible to absorb the braking power in order to regenerate. For regenerative braking, we use it, and we use it to charge the battery. So we decide to allocate some of the decelerating torque to the motor because that's going to provide backup power to the battery, and somewhat we recharge the battery as the vehicle is also operating. And when the drivetrain supplies energy to the battery when decelerating, this is an event that is called as a regenerative event, or sometimes called as regen event. We compute the maximum motor torque available to assist deceleration as the minimum of maximum available torque for acceleration, and a fraction which is called as regen fraction. That maximum torque, this fraction is called as regen torque, and it will be in the range of 0.9. So you can compute maximum motor torque available during deceleration also, and we limit the motor torque to the lower value and demand torque and maximum available torque. So in the picture you can see I have provided a picture here. This is a model of Tesla S vehicle, and this is a cut machine where you can see the rotor part. Actually, the red colored one is your rotor part, and the stationary part is your grayish kind of one which can be connected to the motor. So the Tesla S uses AC induction motor, and so for analysis we are using such a kind of motors in the next slides actually. Now computing actual acceleration, how do I compute it? So now we computed motor torque limits. We are capable to compute actual acceleration force that is available, and the actual acceleration of the vehicle can be computed from the actual velocity of the vehicle. So what we do is, so the actual acceleration force is computed as the limited torque of the motor multiplying by gear ratio. All of you can see limited torque of the motor multiplied by gear ratio, and you are dividing it by wheel radius and converting it into force. So when you do this, it becomes a force. With that, you are going to subtract all the remaining forces, which are aerodynamic force, rolling force, gear force, and drag force. So with that, you get the total acceleration force. So what is actual acceleration? Actual acceleration is actual force, actual acceleration force divided by mass. So mass is in kgs. According to Newton's law, we are going to divide this one. So this is how we are going to compute the actual acceleration. And later, what is the limit for the motor speed? We are going one by one actually back. So from the torque, we got the force. From the force, we got the acceleration. From the acceleration, we are going to find out speed. Previously, whenever we were studying about the complete thing, from the speed, we came to acceleration. From the acceleration, we came to the force. From the force, we got the torque. From the torque, we are able to connect to the batteries. So this is the other way where we are talking about what are the limitations. The equations which are written here are going to help to us in our simulation actually. So all of you can see here, the actual acceleration is just calculated motor. So whenever it spins at higher angular velocity, so actual speed is actual previous speed plus actual acceleration into 1 by s. So what is this actual acceleration? We are able to compute the speed now, so which has limitations. So what we do, the wheel radius, so what we are going to do is, what is the actual previous speed, and the acceleration is multiplied with 1 by s, so we get this one. So whenever we want to find out the test speed, so previous actual speed plus actual acceleration into 1 by s, that is the test speed. So what is your motor speed? Test speed into this coefficient into, these are all the things which are used to keep this units as a value. So what we are going to do is, we are going to find out the desired speed multiplying the wheel radius divided by gear ratio. We are going to do it rpm into meter per second. So we figure out what is co-simulation energy, and we have computed full circuit on the s actual speed. Yes, just give me a second. Yes, so this is your actual torque. So we are at actual torque, right? Let me check. Yes. So all of you can see here, the test speed is the previous speed plus actual acceleration. So meter per second square into second. So it also becomes meter per second, actual acceleration plus this one. So this is what we are going to do. And these are all the scaling constants. So in order to convert the units into RPM. So we compute the test motor speed as equal to test vehicle speed multiplying with gear ratio. And these are all the units which are used to convert it into RPM, convert into RPM and dividing with wheel radius. So this is the wheel radius which we are going to do. And so that we get the motor RPM here. So, and here we compute the actual speed, actual vehicle speed. So it is equal to the limited motor speed multiplying with wheel radius. You can see here multiplying with wheel radius, dividing with gear ratio. This is your gearbox ratio, and remaining all 2 pi divided by 60. It is being scaled up to convert RPM into meters per second. So, and returning to the figure, the same figure which we have discussed about co-simulation strategy, we have now completed the full circuit. Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
We have now
We
completed the
have now
full
completed
circuit
the full circuit
of the left-hand side
of the
part of the
left-hand
figure.
side part of the figure.
It converts desired
It
speed into
converts
actual
desired
speed.
speed into actual speed.
However, we noticed that
However, we noticed that
there may be
there may
many
be
limitations would be there on the battery and its computation. So, which we are going to look. You may ask me, sir, we didn't work on motor power, battery, and SOC, which we are going to do it in the next one. So, this is what we are going to do. Okay. Now we come to the battery limits, all of you. So, this is the battery limit. So we begin looking at the figure again because I said the figure is the major skeleton for the simulation. So in the previous sessions, we focused on deriving equations to simulate the vehicle itself completely. So now we learned how to convert the desired speed and actual speed, desired force and actual torque, desired torque and actual torque. So these things we apply to the motor physical parameters only, and after that we were able to find out many things like we are now we can develop the batteries. So the development of battery and battery energy, battery power, which are used to supply for the motor demand. So but the vehicle range, to determine the vehicle range based on battery capacity, the battery itself must also be simulated. So during simulation, when a minimum battery state of charge, which is SOC, or minimum cell voltage is reached, the distance that the vehicle has driven to that point is the vehicle range. So that's what we are going to do. So in this session, we'll be learning how to simulate the battery pack in parallel to the vehicle in order to determine vehicle range. Because whenever it reaches to halt, it should know what is the vehicle range, what is the distance it has traveled. So we'll also look how to compute the motor power. We'll also learn how to convert the power demanded from the battery, and we'll also learn how to update battery state of charge. These are the things which we are going to learn. And coming to this one, so how do we compute battery power demand? We are slowly coming to, you can look at all my slides. So after whenever I said simulation, I'm writing all my slides in the form of equations. These equations will be simulated at the end and we are going to get the results. So how to compute instantaneous power from the required motor? That is the most important one which you are going to, this one. Remember everyone, the power is equal to speed multiplying the torque. All of you know about it. But the way we ultimately use power in our final equations is to consider an average power by updating the amount of energy that has been used, a Coulomb counting relationship, we can say it here. So the new state of charge is equal to previous state of charge minus current. So that's what we are going to do. So we are going to find out the instantaneous power like this. So how do you find out this power? So this is motor total power. So motor speed plus previous motor speed divided by 2. So power is equal to speed into torque. So that's what we are going to do. And you can look at the battery power, overhead power plus motor power divided by drive efficiency whenever it is accelerating. Motor power, motor head power plus motor power into drive efficiency whenever it is deceleration. So this overhead power, so total power, this motor power into drive train efficiency and drive train efficiency. So whenever you consider this overhead power, so you are going to consider the infotainment concept also. What is this infotainment? People can ask. So we can talk about what are the, suppose if you keep some electrical appliances above it. Suppose you have some audio device in your electrical vehicle, or you have such a lighting system, or you have AC, air conditioning in your electrical vehicles. All these things comes under overhead power. These all will be considered under overhead power. So that's what we are going to discuss about. Okay. So now coming to the next one. So computing vehicle range. So how do you complete the vehicle range? So this is, I'm going to find out the current. So this is power, total power, which is in watts, kilowatts. So voltage into current is going to give you power, as all of you know. So here I am calculating what is current. Current is equal to power divided by voltage. What is the battery power divided by battery nominal voltage, which you are going to discuss. And after that, we are calculating state of charge. What is the previous battery state of charge minus battery current, which is being calculated in one particular cycle, divided by 3600, because we are calculating for every cycle, into battery capacity in amperes hour. So we are going to get everything in percentage if you multiply with 100. So that's what we are going to do it here. And what is the driving range? How much range we are going to travel? Range is equal to total distances of simulated drive cycle. So we are going to do a simulation, like how much cycles we are going to do it. As a sampling rate, we are going to do it for one cycle. But how much range we are going to simulate it? It is the maximum rated battery SOC, state of charge, minus minimum SOC divided by state of charge at the beginning and state of charge at the end of the drive cycle. So whenever we start a cycle, what is SOC at the beginning and what is SOC at the end of the beginning? This ratio we are going to do it, and we are going to multiply with your simulation drive cycle. Then we are going to get the range of that battery thing. So that's what we are going to get here. So here you can see in this one, so in this figure, you can see the different kinds of graphs which you are going to get here. So which is being operated for first generation Cherry Volt. So US06 battery profile, you have a graph. So this is another graph, battery power versus time, battery current versus time. There is a histogram for frequency versus demanded motor power. There is also another graph for torque versus speed characteristics. So let us discuss more about it here. So now we came to know how to compute the battery things also. So these figures in this slide shows some of the data which is extracted from the simulation, which will do basically. The parameter uses a particular simulation shown to you, which is already written there. It is generation 1 Cherry Volt extended electrical vehicles, which is driving only in electrical mode, no IC engine mode actually. So when you look at the top left figure, the profile is of battery pack demanded power versus time. This kind of the information, that this kind of information which is provided from that graph, it is useful when scaling the battery pack to determine what should be the maximum capacity and what is the C rate in the sense current rate, to sustain these kind of power levels. So that's what this graph is going to discuss. And the top right figure you can see here, this one. So this top right figure shows battery current versus time for the same drive cycle. And this kind of graph is used for designing battery packs. It is also used for designing power electronics to understand peak levels of current, which might be useful, to know how much peak current it is going to pass. And if you look at the bottom left figure, it is a histogram of demanded motor power over the same drive cycle. You can see how much power it is being demanded. And you can see that the demanded motor power is rarely greater than 100 watts. You can see here. So it is from minus 100 to plus 100. It never crossed 100 watts. This information is very useful in helping us to size the motor for our applications. So how much motor has to be connected will be shared by this graph, actually, by this simulated graph. And after that, the final figure which you can see here, it's called as a scatter plot of torque and speed at every point during the simulation. So at every sampling point, the combination of torque at that point and speed at that point is plotted as the circle. You can see small sparkles present there. So at every point, we talk about torque and speed at every point, and it is plotted here. The solid black lines on the diagram shows the envelope, the covering parts, it shows the boundary conditions using a Coulomb counting. Okay, this shows this one, achievable, what is the achievable torque that can be produced by our motor design, because it is speed torque characteristics. So each dot tells you about speed, and the envelope, the boundary conditions, tells what is the maximum torque speed range, and we can which is used for the motor design. And we can see the blue dots are almost all entirely within the envelope. You can see only few are present on the dot, and everything is inside the envelope. So there may be only one or two that are limited to the motor design in this case. And it is going to be a very good sign because there are only two things which are present on the envelope. So we are not over designing the motor by giving it extra capacity than it is being needed. So that's what these kind of graphs are going to be produced. Now, so with that, we go with the simulation part. These are all the design equations which we actually have. So we slowly go with this simulation setup actually. So the next classes, the next slides, we discuss about Octave code or MATLAB code. Octave, Octave is an open source software which performs as like MATLAB only. And it is mostly used in electrical vehicles and battery industries as a co-simulator. There are two Octave scripts which everyone must know if you are working on electrical vehicles. The first is called setupsimvehicle.m, and it is an example of how to define data structures that conveniently hold all the parameters values that are needed to describe the vehicle and drive cycle. So that's what that it describes about various kinds of data structures. The second one is called simvehicle.m, and it is the code that simulates all the equation that you have learned about these sessions. And in this session you'll be learning about the first set of code, and later you'll be doing with the second one. So in this setup sim vehicle code, you will learn about defining the parameters value that describes battery cells, modules, multiple battery cells, battery pack. You will describe about the motor, the wheels, and the drivetrain. And these are all called as data structures. We'll define them in the form of a data structures actually. And these parameters will be stored in data structures. All their data will be stored and then combine to make overall vehicle description. I combine each and every one. So I combine about drivetrain, I combine motors, wheels, battery pack, modules, battery cell, and I make a complete vehicle. And as a vehicle description itself, it is a structure that is later used for simulating vehicles. So once vehicle is done, I simulate that vehicle. So what is that use? The parameters values are used for first generation Chevrolet Volt vehicle operating for pure electrical mode. Chevy Volt generation 1 vehicle I'm going to use. And these values are based on public information because they are being publicly shared. So I use this information and I use this for vehicles. And then so this is one such example which I have been used. If you have any information about another kind of electrical vehicle, so you can simulate it for such a kind of vehicle as well. So and these vehicles, so they are not accurately they are, so this is all about simulation, so which are not actually optimized to describe the vehicle perfectly, but they are roughly accurate. And there would be always a small difference between software and hardware. So they are roughly accurate and are provided as suggestion to all kinds of outputs the simulator can provide. So that's what we are going to work on. So in order to tell you, all of you, Octave is an open source because everyone would be working on MATLAB. I just want to give you, just go to Google and type Octave. You'll get into this kind of, you'll get the first link. If you click on the first link, you'll be made to get into this kind of web server. So here, you get this GNU Octave. It's completely open source, which can be operated on any kind of operating system, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, or anything. You can download it. And if you have already worked on MATLAB, because majority of you are faculty and everyone would be complaining like we don't have, proprietary software, we use pirated version. So you can work on this MATLAB, and people are really appreciating to work on this free open source software, which is called as Octave. And the coding which I have written from, which I'm going to discuss from now onwards, is all written on Octave itself. Okay, and now let me go to this one. So this is the code which I have discussed about cell, module, and battery. So here, if you look at, let's have a look at this code actually. The function begins by defining a cell array. All of you can see it, the function starts with defining a cell array containing names of different data files to store drive cycles. For example, NYCC, New York City cycle.txt. So New York City drive profile, UDDS, there are 4 profiles which we discuss. All the 4s are being discussed here. and then I set up for Cherry volt. You can see whenever I keep this percentage symbol, which means that it is a comment, and I write it here. So and the first column is in time in seconds. All of you can see, and later, so whenever I write down this text files, so the format of the drive cycle profile data is very simple. It is separated by comma, and each two columns are separated by comma actually, and the first column of time is in second, and the second column of the speed in miles per hour. So that's what we are going to do, and that is the same for all these drive cycles, whether it is NYCC, UDDS, or USO6 and HWY. So it has two columns. So one is for time and other one is speed in miles per hour. And you can use this code for your own drive cycle profile by supporting a file formatted in that structure, separated by comma. You can use it. And let us go with the next lines of the code, which defines the battery cell that is used in the battery pack. So what kind of things which we are going to use, we are going to discuss here. And then the model which is used in, okay, so, and then we model that as a battery pack, and we use it as a battery pack itself. They do so by calling functions that are nested of the to the main functions, and all reside in setup sim vehicle.m file. So all will be residing in this file. So, and we'll talk about these in few files. The comments before the actual code statements, all of you know the comments are there, which indicate what is the purpose of each parameter that is being passed to call the function underneath that. And the function call is what setups the particular data structure for simulation. So if you go for the first statement, the battery cell that has 15 ampere hours, you can see here 15 ampere hours capacity with a maximum voltage of 4.2 volts and nominal voltage of 3.8 volts and minimum voltage of 3 volts. So that's what we are going to do. And the weight is 450 grams. You can see capacity, weight, V max, V nominal, and V minimal. So all this being is set up. And the next code statement defines battery module. So from the cell, I went to the battery module actually. So it defines containing 3 of these cells wide parallel and 8 wide in series. So with each cell, so they are being connected in series and parallel. How many are connected in parallel? 3 of the cells are connected in parallel and 8 of them has been connected in series, and states that the overhead of the module by weight is 8% versus the raw weight of the cells themselves. So it is 8%. All of you can see 8% is 0.08 percentage of the weight. And the final lines of the code, if you look at the last lines of the code, which defines the battery pack, which contains 12 of this module. So from the cell, I went to the module. From the module, I slowly went to the battery pack. You can see setup cell, setup module, setup pack. So what happens? It has 12 modules, 12 of these modules in series. And you can see here how are they being connected. So, and have 10% overhead by weight caused by the battery pack electronics, and henceforth it also defines state of charge range used by the battery pack between 75 to 25. All of you can say 10 percentage, 0.1, and state of charge 75 to 25 percentage only. I'm keeping it, and defines the energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is 96. Energy is 96, 0.96. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'll go for the next code. The next code is for the motor actually. Motor, wheel, drive, train, and vehicle. So let us continue with the code in this slide also. From now onwards, it's all about coding, and later at the end, we go with the outputs. It defines for the motor of the vehicles to have maximum torque of 275. Yeah, you can see here. You can see the comment which tells about what is the maximum torque and what is the rated RPM and what is the maximum RPM. Rated RPM, maximum RPM, you should get that characteristics into the mind. Constant torque region and constant power region actually, and efficiency of 95 percentage and inertia of 0.2. We also keep inertia here. Okay, and it also defines vehicle wheel. All of you can see here motor is over. Now I am going for the wheel. So the wheel radius, so you can see radius is 0.35 meters, and inertia is 8 kg per meter square actually. And after that, the coefficient, the rolling coefficient 0.0111. Yes, excuse me. Yes, it is 0.0111. So that's what we are going to discuss. And later, I'll go with the drivetrain and inverter efficiency, both the things. And you can see you can see here. So what are the piece of code tells about the drivetrain by defining efficiency of the inverter to be 94 percentage. The maximum regenerative torque is 90 percentage. All of you can see there. The maximum acceleration 12 to 1. Okay, so the maximum acceleration, the maximum 90% of the maximum torque, and defining gear ratio as 12 to 1. It defines gear ratio inertia as 0.05. You can see after 12 it's 0.05, and gear efficiency as 97 percentage, 0.97. So here we are going to discuss about battery, motor, and wheel are done. So battery is done previously, motor is coming here, and wheel is also done here. Now, finally, I go with the vehicle here. I set up the vehicle here. So final code defines the vehicle that has four wheels. You can see I wrote four here. You can make it as two-wheeler, four-wheeler. So I make it as four wheels, and zero road force I took it here as for the simulation, and drag coefficient is 0.22. The frontal area is 1.8 meters square for aerodynamic force. And after that, what is the weight? Weight is 1425 kgs. The payload weight is 75 kgs. And the constant overhead power is overhead power. I was telling you about the ACs, audio system, lighting in your battery. Considering all the things, I kept it as 200 watts, and it is a drive time. So this is the setup which I have given. So this is the data structure which I have given. Coming to this one, so at this point, we defined all the components of the vehicle. So now we are ready to simulate the vehicle. All the things, battery is done, wheel is done, vehicle is done, drain train is done, everything is done. So we are ready with the simulation. So now what we do is we learn how the vehicle simulation code is written in the next class. In the next session, we are going to do it, or in the next slides. Here, what I did, I shared the code. So that invokes the vehicle simulator and calculates vehicle range. So here, this is the piece of code which actually, activates the vehicle simulator and calculates the range of the vehicle. The first thing of the code is to print the message to the command, to the command, so that the operator knows like the simulation has begun. So this is how the simulation code has begun. Then the program loops. So you can see here a for loop is being done. The program loops through the four different drive cycles. Here I kept all the four drive cycles are there. So it goes through all the four different drive cycles profiles that are mentioned earlier, like New York City cycle. For each drive cycle, it first reads the tab of the file which is from the storage, and invokes semi-vehicle.m function and stores the result in simulation.m, and stores the results of the simulation in structured name results. Next, what it happens, it computes the vehicle range using the Lee equation we developed in the previous session. So what happens, it develops the range by the equations which we have discussed previously, and finally it prints the range, and it proceeds to simulate the next cycle. So that's what it is going to do here. Now after that, this is the another code where we are going to talk about data structure of the cell. So now we have seen the overall structure of the code that sets up the vehicle simulation. However, we have not yet discussed the nested functions, sub functions which are inside the code. So I was telling you what are the functions inside the code. I was just giving the values actually. So what are the functions which are subsets actually, which are there inside the code? So that we'll discuss now. In this slide, I want to share with you the code that set up the structure that defines the battery cell. So from the cell, we discussed about module. If you look at it, from the module, we discussed about that thing, the pack, the battery pack. From the battery pack, we went to the motor and wheel. From the motor, we went to drivetrain. From drivetrain, we went to the vehicle. So how do this data structure? We just enter the values previously, but how these things are going to go, that we are going to discuss here. So that is what is there inside this. So it is a subset. So so what happens? The capacity is copied into cell dot capacity. You can see here. The weight is copied into cell dot weight. So what are the values you give? Cell dot capacity, the value gets copied here. Cell dot weight, the weight is get copied here. What is the maximum voltage? What is the nominal voltage? What is the minimum voltage of the cell? What is the energy? What is the specific energy? Everything gets copied here. That's how this subset is going to operate. Now let us go to module data structure. This is a nested function again, which is a subset for the modules, as like previously which we did for the cells also. Here also the same things. So here I call up it. How many numbers are connected in parallel? How many number of cells are connected in parallel? The value which we entered, 8, I think. So we wrote 8. And how many are connected in series? The value comes and sits here. And what is the overhead value? And what is the cell which we are going to discuss? And how many number of cells? So it is going to calculate number of cells in parallel into number of cells into series. What is the cell capacity? What is the module weight? What is the energy? What is the specific energy? These are the things it is going to calculate. So the module energy is computed and it will be stored, and the module, it is everything, what are the value we entered. So these calculations are being done and they will be stored for different cycles that we are going to do. And we are going to the next one. So this is again, battery pack. So this is again the next function, so which is for the battery data structures. So what does it saves? You can look in this slide. It saves about number of modules connected in series, number of modules connected overhead by weight, and what are the full and empty states of charges, and what is the energy efficiency. It also computes and saves some derived quantities actually. First, it computes number of cells in each packs, and later it computes overall weight of the battery pack, and taking into consideration the overhead of electronics and in packing into itself, it computes nominal energy of the battery pack and also specific energy of the battery pack. And finally, it computes what is the maximum, minimal, and nominal voltage of the battery pack. So that's what it is going to compute. Now I'm coming to the motor. Motor, this is a data structure actually. The function setup, the wheel and the motor data structures are very similar. So that's why, both are being mentioned in the same slide. So the function that set up the wheel data structure simply copies the input data values into appropriate places in the data structure. So what all I have given, what all the radius, inertia, roll coefficient, it gets copied into this data structure. The function that sets the motor data structures also copies and puts the parameter into appropriate places in the output data structures. It also computes the maximum motor power. So what it does, what all the values it does, and later it does the calculations and it tells about what is the motor maximum power. That it is what it is going to discuss. So later, we are going to discuss about drivetrain data structures. These are the data structures. So I entered the value. So these values it is going to train. The function sets up the drivetrain data structures, and most lines in the code simply copy the input parameters values into appropriate places. So the final line of the code on the slides, you can see here, what it does is it computes the drivetrain efficiency as a product of battery efficiency, inverter efficiency, motor efficiency, and gear efficiency. So it is going to find all these things. So all the values are copied to the respective places, and finally it computes the efficiency with the code written here. And later, in this one, we come to the vehicle data structures. In vehicle data structures, the first lines of the code in the function copy the functions to appropriate locations which we do it. And after that, the code computes the maximum weight. You can see here the computation here. So all these things, if you can look at the green lines, they come and get placed in the appropriate places. But if the last lines, you can see they calculate maximum weight of the chassis plus battery weight and also the payload weight. They also compute the rotating weight using the equation which we learned before. It computes equivalent mass based on the vehicle's maximum weight and rotating weight. They also compute the last one, you can see vehicle's maximum speed based on motor's maximum speed, and gearing ratio of the vehicle and the wheel radius. So basing on the gear ratio and the wheel ratio, they calculate vehicle maximum speed. So these are the different data structures which we have discussed. So after that, we come into the actual simulation. So we start using this one, so called simvehicle.m. So what we have been doing till now is how to simulate an electrical vehicle and its battery pack. We started by deriving the equations, and then so with these deriving equations, we have to perform the simulations. Then what we did is we started looking into some code to implement simulator. In the previous slides, we learned that the code which we shared is into overall two tasks as a two major scripts. So in the previous slides, we took setup sim vehicle.m script, if you remember, as an example, and how we were able to set up parameter values to describe vehicle and its drive cycle. So from this presentation, we will look how to simulate the vehicle itself. The code which we looked in the previous sessions were data structures to define battery cell, to define module, to define the pack, as well as motor we did it, wheels we did it, drivetrain, and overall we did it. The code which we are going to look in the next slides simulates the drive profile and returns a structure called results. So finally we are going to get the results, which has all kinds of information embedded to it. So we'll see example of how some of the information may be displayed to help size of the battery's maximum power electronics, maximum current, and we'll see some graphs actually, which we have discussed in this lesson. And it helps you to work on battery operated vehicles. So this is what which we are going to discuss from this slide onwards. So look at this slide, everyone. So this slide shows the coding at the beginning of the vehicle script, vehicle simulator script. So you can see the one which are present in green color and which are being with percentage symbol. They are all being called as comments, and which can help you to understand the code. So it begins by defining air density at sea level, and it is assumed to be reasonable value at any altitude of interest. It copies the vehicle data from the input parameters to the function to the output data structure for the future reference. So it also copies drive cycle directly into the output data structure for future reference, and initiates the time vector for the simulation to the first column to the drive cycle. The third input parameter you can see here to the vehicle simulator function is a road grade. So this is supplied in percentage, and it must be converted into radian angle, which is done using the reverse tangent function. The input road grade may be supplied either as a scalar, or in case the same road grade is applied to all the points in the simulation, or as a vector, in which each case there should be different values of road grade at every point in the simulation. So if the input road grade is a symbol number or a scalar, its value is replicated at every point in the drive cycle. The second column in the drive cycle, all of you can see here, the second column in the drive cycle, variable is assumed to be drive speed of the vehicles in miles per hour. It is converted to kilometers per hour using standard conversion ratio. And finally, the derived or the desired speed is also converted into meters per second and is limited to vehicle's maximum speed. So this is what the code being done here. So after that, we pre-locate storage for results being stored. So we get the results here. So this portion of code allocates storage of the results that will be computed. So where we have to store what all the results we got, and it has been included the actual lines of code for several of this, but since all the initializations are essentially the same, so they are not mentioned here. With the actually with the comments, they are being mentioned at the bottom, and the variable names correspond directly to their functions as introduced before. So the results are being in order that the fields that are being allocated define the desired acceleration. You can see defined acceleration force, the second one, acceleration dynamic force, it is written as aero force here. Rolling grade force, roll grade force is written in the form of this one. The demanded torque, the maximum torque, the limited regeneration torque. Hope you can look at the slide and correlate. So the demanded torque, the maximum torque, the limited regeneration torque, the limited torque overall, motor torque, power demanded from the motor, limited power, power demanded from the battery, current demanded from the battery, the state of charge, SOC of the battery. So all of them has been discussed here. So I kept so on so that it can be discussed here. So these all things are being discussed, and finally the overall distance traveled, everything has been relocated so that the results are being stored, the computed results are being stored. And coming to this one, we start the simulation. So we are ready to begin the simulation loop. We initiate the previous speed to be 0 and the previous motor speed to be equal to 0. You can look at the slide here. So previous speed and previous motor speed to be 0 and previous travel distance also to be 0. And we artificially generate a previous data sample time as the first time in the output vector -1. So we take all the zeros and we make it a output vector -1. We also initiate the previous battery state of charge to its full value. We feel like the battery is fully charged. With everything initiated, we begin the simulation loop. We compute the desired acceleration and desired speed minus the previous speed, dividing with the sampling time. That's how we calculate desired acceleration. We compute the desired acceleration force. So how do you, once we get the acceleration, we calculate desired acceleration force by multiplying the mass with acceleration, multiplying equivalent mass with respect to the desired acceleration. So after that, we compute aerodynamic drag force. It's called as aero force K here, using the equation that we have developed previously. So by that equation, we do it here. We complete rolling grad force previously as like previously from the equation which we have developed previously. If the vehicle in motion, then we add rolling force to grad force to make the combined rolling force plus grad force variable. So that's what it is going to be done. If it is rest, we don't consider that force. So that's what we are going to do with the coding. So now what we do is we compute the torque. So forces are being done. So we compute the torque required for the motor to achieve the desired speed exactly using the equation developed previously in the previous slide. So what we need to do is the torque is possible to achieve, but we must compute the maximum torque that the motor can deliver at this point in time. Because we are running with the 0 to rated speed, we should be able to calculate maximum torque. If the motor speed is less than rated RPM, then the motor must be able to drive in full rated torque, which we have seen in that graph. Otherwise, the motor must be able to provide full power, because constant torque region and constant power region, but not full torque. So in the second case, we compute maximum torque by derating it to limited by by derating it to limited by the maximum torque of the motor. So we have already done by applying torque limits. So however, in case of decelerating, we also need to compute a regeneration limit, and we compute the regeneration torque as a smaller of either maximum torque just computed from the regeneration factor multiplied with maximum possible torque that has been achieved by the motor. Assuming for now we are accelerating and not decelerating, so that's what simulation we have done. We compute the limited torque to be the minimum of the demanded torque and the maximum torque. So if indeed we are accelerating, then the limit torque is positive and we assign the motor torque to be this limited torque. Otherwise, we assign motor torque to equal to maximum of the limited regeneration value, and the limited torque and the signed sense within the minimum and the unsigned sense, because we're working with negative quantities in regenerating case. So that's what we are going to do for the torque. And computation of actual speed and distance. So we compute the actual acceleration force on the achieved torque, and from that we find out the acceleration. We compute actual motor speed, but also limit it to be less than or equal to maximum RPM of the motor. So all of us know we can't go more than maximum RPM of the motor. This allows us to compute the actual speed of the motor in meter per second, and we also convert it to kilometers per hour. So the quantity, because we are looking at the speed of the vehicle, so we convert it into kilometers per hour. The quantity of the distance traveled during the sampling time is computed, and it is added to the previous distance in order to compute overall distance traveled until this point is in drive cycle profile. So that's what we are going to do in this code part. And coming to the next code part, what we are going to do is, so at this point of the maximum simulation loop, from the desired speed to actual speed has been computed. So what we do is we now look into the impact on the battery. So we initiate motor demanded power, which is to be equal to the torque able to be produced. Of course, torque and power have different units. So what we do is we'll convert into correct units by multiplying the average speed and the conversion factor. So that's what we are going to do it here. So we then limit this value to demanded torque and what is achievable by our system. We initiate the battery demanded power to be equal to overhead power in kilowatts. So the battery power and kilowatts power should be same, and then to be added with motor demanded power scaled by its efficiency. Remembering that we are discharging, we must divide it by efficiency, and when we are charging, we should multiply it with efficiency. Drivetrain efficiency. And coming to the state of charge and storing results. So now we compute battery current and update battery state of charge using the Coulomb counting relationship. Finally, we update the previous time, previous speed and previous motor speed and previous state of charge and previous distance. You can see it in the code, all of you, for the next iteration through the program loop. And that concludes main program loop, and that concludes the electrical vehicle simulation completely. And once this simulation is being run on the Octave, you are going to get this kind of graphs. So for different profiles, which I have already said you, NYCC, UDDS, USOC profiles, we have discussed. So HWY, these are the four kinds of, so whenever you simulate it, this is the graph which I have shown you previously. So these two electrical vehicles are going to move like start and stop, traffical problems will be there. And those two things are going to work in highways and, you know, they are going to go mostly on hilly ways kind of thing. So with that, and let me see here. So right, so for all the different profiles when I simulated, so this is the kind of graph. So we discussed about these kind of graphs. I have shown it for one. So this is the time versus current. Time versus current, like how much current, how much amount of maximum current it is being drawn by different kinds of electrical profiles, electrical vehicle profiles. Taking four vehicle into profile, we worked it out. And also, you know, we have worked on, you know, power. So to know about energy consumption, we have worked on the power concepts. And this is the, you know, to know what is the motor capability. If you can look at here, it has not crossed minus 30 and 50 here. It's 50, 50, 50. So this is the frequency. The histogram tells you how much power. So this can help you to design your motor. And later, you know, this is the other one where frequency versus power. Yes, frequency versus power. And here, this is the other one, you know, where this is the torque speed characteristics, whether they are crossing the boundary conditions or within the boundary conditions. So for all the four profiles, we have done. So with that, you know, I conclude my presentation. And yes, with that, thank you all. So hope, because it is all about coding, it would be a bit of confusing because it is a lot of things have been dumped in 1.5 hour time. So starting with nesting loop, data structures group, and, you know, coding part, starting from basics to equations and data structures. So if you have any questions, you can ask me now. So thank you all.
Participants, anybody can ask questions. If you have any doubts, you can ask.
So good evening, sir.
Good evening, madam.
Sir, this is Gajendran from Tamil Nadu.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you have shown excellent presentations in observed now. My question is, if you are changing the driving motor into induction motor into some other motor or motor like
Oh,
that, what are
yes,
the
sir.
things we need to do to
Okay, sir. Actually, I worked on induction motor, sir, because as you know, like by considering constant torque region and constant power region. So one, because I'm working on four wheel, so my concentration is mostly on to buses. Actually, nowadays people are working on two wheeler. Two wheeler, they are going for brushless DC motor. So because two-wheeler, like you can charge it at any point, you may not go for very long distances as like buses and other things. So you can even go ahead with that, sir. You can even simulate for such kind of vehicles also.
And so one more question, sir. In
Yes, sir.
the Octave software version of Freeway, whether
Yes,
we
sir.
have a like a similar like platform there?
Actually, Octave is only for coding parts, sir. We don't have any toolbox as like in MATLAB, because you know what all simulation which you do in MATLAB, you have a coding with respect to that. If you know how to get that coding part of what all the simulation you can do, that coding all you can even transfer. You can just copy it in a file and you can paste it in Octave. It works as like a simulation file only,
Okay, so thanks a lot.
because the simulation blocks, every block has its own code. So it's nothing but a group of code, as like I discussed. So motor, drivetrain, cell, module, pack, everything I did it like pieces and pieces I combined together. In simulation also you combine pieces of blocks, and so each piece of blocks has a code running backside of it. So if you can easily get that code, sir. If you can get that code, and you can easily place it in Octave and get the same results as like MATLAB.
Sir, if you
So the
type,
advantage of the
sir, tell me.
yes, sir.
Just if you're typing sim vehicle means the Python codes are coming from Google.
Sorry, sir. I didn't get your question,
As
sir,
in, if you
clearly.
type sim vehicle means so many Python codes are available in websites. Sir. Just now I browsed all it.
If you are typing Simulink in Google, sir.
Sim vehicle.
Sorry, sir.
Sim vehicle.
Oh, sim vehicle you are typing. Okay, okay. Yes, sir. What you are getting it, sir?
So many Python commands we are getting, so files we are getting from Google.
Okay. Actually, sim vehicle, you can go to Octave and then check it, sir. There is actually a nested data structure in the Octave. You can
Okay.
go to Octave and then type it. As like you are checking like Simulink box, sir, there is an integration box. Here also there is a tool called sim vehicle or setup sim vehicle kind of thing. So these are the things which you can use it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other person? Okay, it's now time for a vote of thanks, sir. Thank you, Guruswamy, sir, for your
Thank you,
valuable
sir.
time. And now, Divya, Sirisha, madam of EEE department, St. Peter's Engineering College, will proceed with the vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, all. As all good things come to an end in life, so is the today's session. On behalf of St. Peter's Engineering College, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar on algorithms for battery management systems organized by our institute. At the outset, I thank our chief guest and resource person, Guruswamy sir. Sir, we are really enlightened with your knowledge. In this session, we have learned what must BMS do, and the first concern for BMS human safety, and the second concern is to protect the battery pack. Why do we need BMS? Vehicular applications like hybrid electric vehicle, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, extended range battery electric vehicle, need for the co-simulation of battery and load. As a hybrid electric vehicle is more complex, its simulation is complicated. To simulate an electric vehicle, we need accurate description of vehicle itself and the desired profile of speed versus time, that is the drive cycle, and they are modeled in four, namely urban dynamometer driving schedule, highway fuel efficiency test, New York City cycle, US 06 drive cycle, and sir, it is also learned approach to simulation an electric vehicle, battery power computed based on motor power and battery, state of charge. It is the level of charge of an electric battery relative to its capacity. It is also seen there are four kinds of forces present on the wheel acting on vehicle, namely aerodynamic force, rolling force, brake drag, grade force, and demanded motor torque powertrain of e-Golf by Volkswagen, and finally competing by battery power demand, vehicle range. From US 06 drive profile electric vehicle simulation results, which can be used to size motor, battery, electrical systems, and this simulation is done through scientific programming language, namely Octave or MATLAB scripts, which is an open source software exclusively meant for electric vehicle and battery management system. Sir, it is a wonderful start to all participants who wants to do research on the hybrid electric vehicle. We are thankful to our HOD sir for his motivation and enthusiastic support. A special thanks to the organizing committee members, teaching and non-teaching staff for their unflinching support and coordination. On behalf of our Triple department, St. Peter's Engineering College, I would like to thank all the participants who actively participated in today's session and make this session a great success. With this warm words and kind message, we move to the end of today's session. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you
madam.
all. Thank you, sir. Guruswamy sir, thank you very
sir.
much.
Thank you very much, sir.
You have explained with coding. It is very excellent, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, actually, it would be a long session, sir. Like I can explain it for 3 hours. So I concised it because we don't have enough time. Like I got a message like it's only 10 minutes. So
Okay.
that's I confined it. So I request all the people to just start working with the existing model and go ahead with working with your own models. Like one person said, why can't we work with DC models? Yeah, you can do it. So you can do n number of models because electrical vehicles is the upcoming technology. And all of you know, like many people started using electrical vehicles, and there is lot much to do in electrical vehicles, so especially in the motor point of view and battery point of view. So with that words, I'll end it up. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jay Krishna, sir. Thank you, Krishna, sir. Thank you, Sirisha, madam, for your kind words.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much, Thank you.
Sir, I'm going to end up this session.
Okay, sir. You can end up the session, sir.
Thank you, sir.